The goal of this lesson was for students to be able to identify how Britain responded to the Boston Tea Party events. That conflict that happened with the colonists was a very big event leading up to the American Revolution, so we want students to understand what it was that the British did in response to that. So having this lesson portray the king in a fictitious way, in a way that the kids could connect to and understand and appreciate, describing the repercussions that would happen to the colonists help kind of drive the lesson, and then they go into the reading and they're able to identify those main events that happened.
And the question that we've been exploring in this cluster is, how did the people of Massachusetts respond to conflict with Britain? Did they respond well or not so well? What do we think? Yeah, they were definitely responding in a way to show the British that they were not happy with the rules that were happening and that conflict was not okay. We've had two clusters. Cluster one, we talked about the new king coming in and making a new rule. Colonists, you're not allowed to move on to indigenous lands anymore. Paul Revere made a portrait of the 10,000 British troops that arrived to start enforcing those rules. We talked about taxation, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, those different things that were happening and charging the colonists more and more money to pay for those troops, to pay for some debts that Britain had. Cluster 2, we talked about the Boston Massacre and Crispus Attucks being the first person shot during that massacre. How did British government respond to the destruction of tea in Boston Harbor? Now, we haven't learned about this. I want you to make a prediction. How do you think the British government felt hearing that all the tea that they had shipped to the colonies was thrown into Boston Harbor? I want you to turn and talk with someone on the carpet. What do you think? So you think that the money that they're going to lose is going to be a problem? What do you think they're going to do?
I think they're probably going to start the American Revolution.
Okay, all right. How are they going to do that?
Get mad and then show them that it's going. We're going.
It's going to happen? Okay.
If he's already lost maybe hundreds of thousands of tea put into the ocean, that's going to waste a lot of money that he's put into getting it over and all that.
And we already have a lot of money that they're trying to make up for, right? Because there's been some wars that we know of that happened beforehand that they're trying to use colonist taxes for.
You're still there, and with all the tea dumped, he's not going to be able to pay and probably going to lose some men.
We are going to pretend that this is the king sending us a message. Note the date and the place. This is Buckingham Palace in London, April 22nd, 1774.
To my subjects in the American colonies, we have tried to seek compromise. We have tried to help you by offering you cheap tea, and this is how you repay us. With insolence and vandalism? You have gone too far. Destroying 340 chests of tea for your amusement clearly shows just how many of you have become traitors to the crown. This lawless and disloyal behavior will not go unpunished.
We always start with the essential question and the supporting question because we want students to constantly be thinking about those inquiry questions. This is an inquiry arc that we're following, so we want to make sure that that is front and center with their thinking, and they remind themselves, oh, this is how we are exploring this question. We go back and we talk about what we've already done so far with the two clusters, and then talked about what we had learned about on Friday, which was those initial events of the Boston Tea Party. Today's lesson was how did Britain respond to those events? So the connection was really important for students to be able to see there was a big event that happened with the colonists. How did the British respond to that event? Were they happy about it? Were they angry, upset? What happened as a result?
Some of our predictions were correct. What did he threaten to do? He said, this will not be allowed. You will not be allowed to say no to me. These are the rules. You need to follow them. What were the consequences he just threatened?
Boston Harbor was being closed from shipping until next week.
The harbor is going to be closed to shipping? What does that mean for the colonists? I'm not sure. All right, hands down for a second. We have an informational text here that we're going to be reading with our partner from last week. You are going to observe what text features do you see. You are going to read the information on Britain responds to the Boston Tea Party. You're going to think about additional things that the king did in response to the tea being thrown in the harbor. And then we're going to bring it all together and we're going to do some sorting. What did the British government do, I should say, and what did the American patriots do? This is how Britain responds, or what do they do after, okay? What else do we see, Jamie? The word bank, or a glossary, right? And it's going to tell us the meanings of these two words, which I'm going to help us with. Eyes are over here. Okay. Coercive. Coercive. Using force or threats to make someone do something against their will. Intolerable. Impossible or very difficult to accept, endure, or tolerate. There's a couple more text features on here. What else do we see?
I see. George.
A bold word?
Yeah.
Yep. So we have some bold words, and those connect to our word bank.
There were several groups that were created by pairing up students that I knew were working on the same topic, whether it be decoding longer multisyllabic words together, students who don't yet know how to use text features, things like that. So intentional grouping of partners and then doing the sort in groups helped kind of bounce ideas and connect between each other. In the group work where they had to sort the cards. Something that I did do as I circled around the room was I checked in with all the groups to see if they were identifying the text features, because students who need that nonfiction comprehension support don't always see those nonfiction text features as a support for them as they're learning and reading about a topic. So making sure that they were seeing those features and bringing it into their learning was really important.
What kind of text features do we see? Go ahead, Harrison. Bold words Harrison had. They didn't have cameras back then, so that's actually a painting. What's underneath the painting? Who's in the painting?
General Thomas.
Yeah. Matthew, do you know how we know that?
Because you said the
Yeah, do you know what that text feature is called? Do you remember? Caption. The caption tells us what's in there. In our word bank, we have a couple words that we should know the meaning of, especially because the names of the things the king is going to do have to do with those two vocabulary words. So take a second to look at those and then get started reading, okay? When we watched the video, the king threatened to do a couple different things. Did we read about those things in here?
Yes.
What kinds of things did the king threaten to do that we read about?
Boston Harbor closed.
Yep, Boston Harbor closed. So should we highlight that detail? That's important. He said something was going to happen to the government of Massachusetts too.
What happened?
Yeah, what did happen? He closed the harbor. He said Massachusetts is now under his control. What did he do? Who did he put in place? So we need to look for a name. A name is going to have what kind of things at the beginning of it? Oh, capital letters. Looks like Miriam found it. Thomas Hutchinson became who?
As the king replaced Thomas Hutchinson as the governor of Massachusetts.
See if you can find one more piece of evidence to highlight, okay? Do we think that's important too? The colonists are going to work together? I agree. The king said, you're not going to follow my rules. Instead, you're going to be under my laws. What did he do to make sure people were following his laws? Do you remember? It's in the second paragraph. Now we're going to make connections. What happened? How did the British respond? The colonists made a decision. Hey, we need to start working together. We read about how other colonies started to send food to Boston to help them. Why did they have to do that? What was something else that happened? What was closed? Do you remember? Boston Harbor got closed, and that's where a lot of their food was being shipped into. If your harbor is closed and the ships can't come in with your food, that's a problem. That's where their food was coming in. They started to run out of food, but other colonies started to help them and support them. Hadley.
Instead of being scared into meetings, the colonists decided it was time.
They're going to start rising up and fighting against. Cece, what else happened?
They quickly made new and very strict laws to punish British music and make all the colonists obey British rule.
Those strict rules were the harbor closing. The harbor closed, and then someone else showed up. Who showed up?
General Thomas.
General Thomas Gage shows up. He becomes the governor. The king says, all right, I'm putting a new governor in place because you will follow my rules. We pulled out super important information from this article. We pulled out the key details that Boston Harbor was closed. The king was not happy. He sent some more troops. He also sent the governor to start ruling over Massachusetts, somebody that he approved of. We're going to use what we just learned to do a sort. There is a 2-column paper, You need to cut out the pieces, and you're going to sort with your groups. We're going to go back to our tables. You're going to sort with your groups. Which words or actions do you think were taken by the British government? Which actions were taken by the American patriots? Were the American patriots furious about the Boston Tea Party?
No, because they created it.
They created it. They did the Boston Tea Party, right? Decided to make new laws. Who made new laws? The British government or the American patriots? Yep, so we're going to put that there.
I always make sure that I check in with the groups that have a little bit more trouble getting started and initiating their work. So those are the first groups that I went to, but then I was able to get them started and circulate and then ask additional questions to my students who might need some higher level thinking. I'm asking them more inferential questions as to how do you think that this made the colonists feel? Where do you think support might be coming from? And things like that to help those students push their thinking even further for those who need it.
How did the people of Massachusetts respond to conflict with Britain? Sent a new governor to Boston. Who sent a new governor? The British government sent a new governor. Decided to fight the government. Who was fighting the government? Landon, what do you think?
American patriots.
American patriots. Who was furious about losing freedoms? Juliana. The American patriots. Who sent food to Boston? American patriots. We were talking about this at another group. The patriots were not just in Boston. They were around in the other colonies as well. Who's limiting power? Ryan? The British government. Who shut down Boston Harbor? Jamie. The British government. Today we talked about how the British responded to the Boston Tea Party. With your thumbs, how did the British feel about the Boston Tea Party? They responded in several ways. We talked about those ways, like closing the harbor, sending more troops, and stating a new governor.